Among the distinguished guests, the guest of honor, Duke Ellington, arrives with his sister, Ruth Ellington. Duke Ellington's son, Mercer, with members of his family. Musical stage star Cab Calloway with Mrs. Calloway. Singer Billy Eckstein, trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie, Dr. and Mrs. Arthur Logan. Magazine publisher John Johnson and Mrs. Johnson.
Julian Bond called them political prostitutes. That's what he called some of those celebrities at the time who aligned with Nixon. When you think about folks like James Brown and Sammy Davis Jr. aligning themselves with Nixon.
Our very special honored guest tonight is one who exemplifies that can-do spirit. We all know about his records, we all know about his motion pictures and his personal appearances around the country. And most of us know, too, about his best-selling book, which is entitled appropriately, Yes, I Can. When we think of Sammy Davis Jr., we remember that he began as a relatively poor boy. We remember, too, that he overcame the poverty and the prejudice and went clear to the top because he had that spirit of, yes, I can. And tonight, as I think of how appropriately to present him here in Washington in the White House to this very distinguished audience, I think we could refer to him as our golden boy.
They use race and they provide almost a racial security blanket for some of the issues in the Republican Party. There are grifters in every community, but Black Republicans, it is tactical, and in many ways it can be insidious. It could be proximity to power, it could be money, it could be hopefully congressional seat, or as Frederick Douglass said about Isaiah Montgomery in 1890, he said, others will be dazzled by fame and imitate their bad example. Isaiah Montgomery, who voted against Black men being able to vote. He basically said, quote unquote, Negroes are too dumb to vote. This was at a state constitutional convention in Mississippi, and he was rewarded for that. There was a reward for this indecency. When Booker T. Washington gives his famous Atlanta Compromise speech in the late 1890s, he says terrible things, basically saying that Black people asked for equality too soon, we should be subservient to white rule. And he received tons of donations for his school, Tuskegee University, and also for himself. He privately profited from that. But, you're going to add a little bit of context to that. We can't relate to what it's like to being formerly enslaved and finally getting access to a bit of power and what you'll do to maintain that.
James Brown was an entertainer. Sammy Davis Jr. were entertainers. They were not politicians. I'm not sure they were particularly interested in politics. Brown had actually supported Hubert Humphrey. But when he had an opportunity to go to an inauguration and, sing and make new contacts and maybe build up an audience, he did it.
Black America is not monolithic. There's a lot of diversity. And I would say there's some ideological diversity also within Black America. You had your integrationists, that were mainly part of the Civil Rights Movement. Then you had your nationalists, who believed that Black people should have their own agenda and not be influenced by a white agenda. And then you had the Pan-Africanists, who had a perspective over the diaspora. And then you had the socialists, who believed that capitalism was wrong. So you had all these tendencies. But at some point, we all worked together.
A fresh start.
There are folks in the administration who are doing what some folks may say shameful things, realizing that Nixon waged a war on Black communities. Floyd McKissick, who the administration would eventually turn on him, but he thought he would get access to a Soul City in North Carolina. He thought it would get federal funding. And as they say today on social media, the lions ate his face. But it was all under this veil of Black capitalism.
Nixon was the one that first said the term Black capitalism.
Well, Nixon believed that he could begin to win over middle-class African Americans who were benefiting from the Civil Rights Act if he emphasized not new legislation, but perhaps government programs that could send money into Black communities. And those monies could be used for development of stores and businesses and housing and so forth within the Black community.
It starts with the Black Panther Party. It was so influential in how I view the world. It starts with my teachers and my coaches. And all of us have persons in our lives who we know poured so much into us, and we owe them something.
Two Black Panthers were killed in Chicago. Police said the Panthers had opened fire when the police entered, but the Panthers denied it. They said the police had broken in and killed one man at close range as he slept. No one was killed in Los Angeles, but Panthers said that the police had started the shooting.
Brother Fred Hampton has been murdered by the fascist paid police departments, the Daily Machine, in connection with the federal government's operation to commit genocide against the Black Panther Party and also imprison Black Panther Party members, not because we've broken any law, but because our 10-point platform and program and the community action programs that we've put together are very concrete things that serve the people are being implemented daily, and Black people in Black America are accepting these basic programs, while at the same time the fascist mass media is consistently attempting to maintain the status quo of the fascist operation of the Nixon Agnew fascist machine.
After 1968, you get the Chicago 8, which becomes the Chicago 7, a group of organizers and activists that are accused of two things. One, conspiracy, right? And two, crossing state lines to incite a riot. And the second one at the time is a brand new law. It sounds very familiar to the laws we have now, right? One of those defendants is Bobby Seale, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party. So we've got a kind of diverse group of people that they've picked from all of these different movements to make examples of for everybody else. To say that if you dare to protest what we are doing, even though we're technically the party of your side, we will punish you just like these folks are getting punished. Bobby Seale asks in this trial to represent himself, and is the only Black man being charged. His desire to speak for himself is so threatening that they literally bound, gagged, and restrained him to his chair just for asking to represent himself in a court of law, which is the right of every American citizen. They separate Bobby Seale's trial from the other one, which is how the Chicago 8 becomes the Chicago 7, because they say, you are causing too much chaos. You put too many ideas in too many people's heads. So you've got a totally separate trial. And in that separate trial, he gets convicted, has a 4 or 5 year jail sentence.
Economic political and social oppression that black people have been subjected to cannot be justified at all. There's rapidly rising, way over 50% black people in prisons. Inside the jails, there are always attempts to try to break the spirit of political prisoners, but we know that you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution.
Not all white people, but en masse, right?
And last night, I tell you, to watch that thing on television as I did, to see those monkeys from those African countries, damn them, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes.
Well, and then the tail wags the dog there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The tail wags the dog.